Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, and this podcast is for high-performing, empathic women who are ready to stop second-guessing themselves and start trusting what they know. Maybe you're successful in your career or business. People rely on you. You make difficult decisions every day, and yet sometimes the moment someone else's emotions, expectations, or opinions enter the conversation, your own clarity starts to disappear. If you've ever wondered, how can I be so confident everywhere else in my life but struggle to trust myself when it comes to my own needs, you are in the right place. Each week, we'll explore self-trust, nervous system regulation, emotional energy, boundaries, intuition, and the everyday moments where your life changes, not because you've become someone new, but because you learn to stay connected to yourself. I'll share client stories, my own experiences, practical tools, and honest conversations to help you stop abandoning yourself and start creating a life that's truly your own. Because I believe you already know more than you trust, and that is a yes-filled life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. If you keep talking yourself out of the things you really want because you can't explain why you want them, it feels like you have to justify your decisions, and it's really hard to make the logistical math, but you know you want it. You know you're being intuitively guided towards it. I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do to start trusting those little intuitive pulls again. And the third one, honestly, is going to be the most important for my fellow empaths because it is the thing that's also the hardest for those of us that are empaths to do. And it involves letting go of how other people understand your choice. And I want to tell you about one specific time when I tested out all 3 of these without even realizing it in a centuries-old mystical bookshop in London, exactly 1 year after my dad died. All right. And this is incredibly timely because inside the Empowered Empath Collective, we are spending the rest of August and early September exploring intuition, how to recognize it, how to understand when your intuition is communicating with you, what to do to allow that communication to land more easily for you, and how to stop overriding it. And I'll tell you more about the Empowered Empath Collective later. So I'm recording this episode just before the 2nd anniversary of my dad's death. He died on August 16th, 2024. And this month, I haven't decided if I'm doing it on the anniversary of his death or later in the month, but I'm going back to the beach, the Pacific Ocean, to scatter more of his ashes. Most of his ashes are buried in Madison, Wisconsin. In case you're a listener that's one of my family members and you're like, wait, why is there a gravesite? Well, there's a gravesite because there was a little bit of a difference on how we wanted to celebrate my dad's life. Some of us felt like it was important to have a fixed burial site for him. And some of us, that'd be me, felt like I wanted my dad to be in the places that he really liked. And so I have scattered some of his ashes along the Oregon Trail in Boise, Idaho, where we all lived. My sister did not, but my parents and my daughter and I lived in Boise for 14 years at the same time in the same neighborhood. And so I scattered some of his ashes a few weeks after he died on the Oregon Trail. And I'm going to do some more on the beach sometime this month. And then I'll do the rest over time in places that were really meaningful for him. But the story that keeps coming back to me isn't about my dad's death. It's literally what happened 1 year after he died. So my mom decided after my dad's death that it was really important to mark my dad's life with some celebratory event that was one of a kind, that was incredibly special. And so she decided to take my entire family. That would be me, my daughter, my sister, her husband, my two nieces, and my mom to London. And we stayed in an incredible flat in Kensington Park in London. And we went all over the city. We did some very traditional sightseeing like Westminster Abbey, London Bridge, Tower of London. We got to go to Stonehenge and Bath. And oh my gosh, I probably need an episode just around Stonehenge and Bath at some point. I've been meaning to do that for the last year, but it hasn't quite settled in my system yet. So that's coming soon. But one of the most life changing pivotal events happened on a random day after lunch. So, my brother in law really wanted to go to a pub that was specific to one of his favorite writers. And it's not my story to tell, so I'm going to not tell it. But we had gone to this pub to have a lunch with traditional English pub food. And I don't remember what I had, but I remember it was good. And I also remember that I found this cider while I was in London, which is ironically from New Zealand, called Cherries and Berries. And if you are English or a Kiwi, oh my gosh, I love that cider. It's so good. It's one of the best I've ever had. And so I often had that at lunch because, when in England, do the thing. So I had a little cider with lunch and my lunch, which I don't even remember what it was, but it was something traditional. And then the one thing that I really wanted to do in addition to Stonehenge while we were in London was to visit this mystical bookstore called Watkins Books near Trafalgar Square. And the reason that I wanted to visit that specific bookstore is I had guested on a podcast, and it was kind of a mystical podcast called, I think, Angels and Destiny. And the podcast host and I were just talking before we recorded, told her I was going to London, and she said, "You must visit Watkins Books. It's right up your alley." I didn't even know more than that when I just felt in my body, I need to go to Watkins Books. So that was my agenda. I was like a dog on a bone. I must get to this bookstore. Now, keep in mind that the way my family operates is not perhaps typical. And when we go on a vacation together, the expectation pretty much is that we do all the things all together and we're together all the time. And so knowing that, I was careful not to choose too many activities that I felt like I just really want this one thing. And Watkins Books was that one thing. Watkins Books and Stonehenge were my must have kind of experiences. So I could tell that the rest of the family was a little lukewarm because they're like, why this random bookstore in London? But that's okay. My daughter was into it. She was also, my daughter likes to be on my side. And so she was just, supporting mom. But that's what we wanted to do. So now this is the first thing that I want to really highlight, because the first thing that happened was I felt this pull towards Watkins Bookstore, which turned into a desire to be in Watkins Bookstore, which turned into like, it felt like I was being drawn into the bookstore. And I want to highlight this because if we miss the moment when a desire sparks, we're missing a really important pull. There's not usually a booming voice from spirit or from your guides that says, go here. And like big pointing arrows, like in my dance studio, the owner says, go to the green arrow, follow the green arrow if you want to go to the bar. There's no green arrow in a lot of our intuitive work and in a lot of our heart-centered work where we're following the nudge. It's so much more subtle. So sometimes your intuition is going to feel like a desire. Like, I really want to do this. I can't stop thinking about it. I really want to do it. I feel curious about it. That is intuition. Okay. So that said, we put the GPS in the phone because we were walking in London. None of us lived in London. My mom had been there before, and I think my sister and brother-in-law had been there before too, but I had not been in London before. And when I put in the GPS, I was like, oh my gosh, we're right around the corner from Watkins Books. And as we were walking, I was struck by how the streets feel so different in London compared to where I live in Portland, Oregon, in the US. Specifically, I live in Beaverton, and the streets are very wide in Beaverton. They're less wide in Portland, especially in some of the Western Hills. But in London, they're very narrow. In fact, they're so narrow, they would be comparable to like a really wide sidewalk in the US. If you've never been before, that's kind of the vibe. And then they're cobblestone in some places, which is extra cool. So anyway, we're walking along, we see this Watkins bookstore sign, and I just feel myself walking faster. I'm so excited. I can't wait to get inside. I can't wait to see what's there. And I could feel my daughter also being excited, but I could feel that the rest of my family was actually putting on the brakes. I could feel not only did they not want to go, they actually didn't want to go. It wasn't just indifference of like, yeah, this is not my choice, but I'll go along with you. It was more like, I don't want to go in there. And so one of the things that I want you to notice before we continue with the story, and this is the practice, I'm going to give you three. This is the first of the three. I want you to pay attention to when you notice yourself really wanting something and you don't immediately try to understand it. Just let yourself want what you want. Let yourself actually complete the wanting so that it's clear, oh, yeah, I really do want to go to this bookstore. It's not just that I want to go to a bookstore, I want to go to this specific bookstore. That's the way your desire, your intuition is going to come through. Why? Well, is it practical? No, it's definitely not practical. Did everyone want to? No, for sure not. Was it worth it? Oh my gosh. I can't wait to tell you the rest of the story because when you start to allow your desires, your curiosities, ooh, that sounds fun, to guide your decisions, you are actually following the breadcrumbs. And so I was telling people on a live group reading that sometimes spirit will come through with, it looks like paving stones in my mind's eye. Like, we're going to show you this paving stone, and then we're going to reveal the next one, and then the next one, but you can't see them all until you're on one. When you're on one, then we'll reveal the next one. And a lot of times, the very first clue that something is happening in your intuition is that sense of desire, curiosity, feeling excited. And so that's something I really want you to pay attention to. So that was number one. And this is the kind of noticing that we do inside the Empowered Empath Collective membership. And we do this all the time, but specifically, we're really leaning into what is our intuition telling us at the end of August, beginning of September inside the membership. We are careful not to make every feeling mean something because emotions are not necessarily going to be a guide for your intuition, although they are very important. I'll discern that later. But you want to be really familiar with your own internal signals so that you can start to recognize your own signals before everybody else's input gets layered on top. And then you sort of lose your own signal, which is what happens with so many of us empaths. So as we got to the front of Watkins bookstore, I could literally feel my heart rate increasing. I could feel like my heart chakra opening, that energy center in the heart. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it felt almost like the world faded away behind me as I entered the bookstore. It was so cool. And my family entered the bookstore and they were instantly uncomfortable. I don't mean just like it wasn't their preferred activity kind of uncomfortable. I mean, they were repelled. They did not want anything to do with Watkins bookstore. And so they came in, they kind of made a face. And by they, I do mean everybody. And then they just kind of gently walked outside. Meanwhile, my daughter and I are like being drawn even more deeply into the store. It's the same store. My daughter and my reaction is like, ooh, more of this. And my family's reaction is like, ooh, less of this. This is really important because it's the same environment, but completely different internal responses. We stayed because we felt that pull. They left. They went on to do some shopping on their own. We had talked about we were all going to do the store together, but it became very instantly clear that that was not going to be aligned for us. And so they went on, they did some other shopping, and my daughter and I just like gave ourselves permission to be in the store. And my sister and my mom and brother-in-law were great too. They were like, just take your time, take whatever time you want, have fun. We're just going to go do something different, which was such a beautiful thing. So as we walked into the store, we noticed there are books and mystical things and divination tools and crystals from literally around the world. Card decks and angel cards, tarot, witch cards, witch books, tarot understanding books, numerology, you name it. And I was sort of thinking, I know there's something for me in this store, but I don't know what it is. And so I just literally put my hands to my heart space. I relaxed my body, relaxed my shoulders, and I just cleared away a little bit on the heart space. I'm showing you on YouTube. If you're not yet connected with me on your Yes Filled Life on YouTube, that might be something you could be curious about. So anyway, I'm clearing away like any energy buildup, and then all of a sudden I just felt almost like I was dancing, like I had a lead that was taking my frame places. So I was instantly drawn over to this little spiral display. My eyes were telling me, no, nothing's there, but my heart was like, yes, there's something there. And so as I got over to this little stand, it was like a glass case that was circular and could spin. And I could just feel in my heart there was something there for me. So I asked for some help, and the person who came over had a turban on his head, and he introduced himself to me as one of the guardians of the bookstore. And I was like, ooh, a guardian of the bookstore. This is amazing. And so we were just talking together, and I told him that I might like to feel some things that were in the case. And I just asked permission. And he was so impressed by me asking permission. He was like, yeah, can I just stay and watch what you do? And I said, yes, absolutely. I didn't even ask for the case to open. I just took my hand and I was just feeling what would make my heart absolutely light up. What could I feel in my hand? And as soon as I got to the Moldavite section, which I already have a lot of Moldavite, by the way, I'm not new to Moldavite, but I felt something. And I said, ooh, there's something about the Moldavite, but I can't tell which one it is. There were three pieces in there. And he said, well, let me open the case. Maybe you should hold them. And so I said, yeah, I think that would be great if you'd be willing. And he was so excited to see the process. And we were talking and he just kept saying, you're so respectful of the crystals, of the process, and like of trusting the information. He was really interested in my process and curious about me and open to learning about me. And I was asking questions about how did he get into this work? How did he find this bookstore? And it was pretty amazing. So anyway, he brings out these three Moldavite crystals. And I'm going to tell you what happens next. But first, I want you to notice in your own body, when are you having body reactions? When are you noticing your hand feeling warmer or feeling like sparkles, for lack of a better term, or feeling a pull in your hand when you get ready to touch something? Or when are you feeling drawn to something with your heart? Or vice versa, when are you being absolutely repelled? Like maybe it feels like tension in your shoulders or a clench in your belly. When are you feeling those things? Really notice what's true for you. In fact, I would invite you to try to practice noticing what's happening in your body before you start scanning the room to see how everybody else around you is reacting. That is a practice that we fine tune and drill and practice again and again and again inside Power Self Trust for Empaths. The doors are not currently open for Power, but they will be opening later in September, and we begin our fall cohort on the 29th of September. So that could be an option for you if you're curious. But the really big piece I want you to lean into here is, what are you doing in your life that is causing some type of a body reaction? Are you noticing an openness, like a feeling of, ooh, expansion, excitement, possibility? Are you noticing a feeling of relief, like you can finally exhale? Are you noticing, like, oh, I'm so curious, I'm so interested, I want to know more? And it might even feel like you're leaning forward. Are you feeling pulled closer? Are you feeling like, I just want to be here? I want to stay. I want to linger in this energy a little bit longer. None of these sensations are an instruction, just notice. They're just information pieces that your body is picking up. Your body is an incredibly intelligent divination tool that actually has all the information you need inside. And this is part of the reason I was drawn to become a somatic coach, because I know that through my intuitive gifts, I have so much somatic access. And I love teaching other people how to create their own somatic access, as well as understanding the impact your nervous system has. I've been studying nervous system stress responses, trauma responses for many, many years. In fact, when I was getting my master's degree in educational leadership, my focus in my ethnographic sketch was on the effects of trauma on being able to learn and retain information. So I've been doing this work for a really, really long time. That was like 2010 when that research started. Anyway, let's move on to number three. Number three is really, really important, because if we miss out on number three, we won't be able to get the message or experience the magic that our intuition is guiding us to. So this is a really big one. So if you've been doing something else, if you've been doing multitasking, this is your opportunity to come back in. I want you to remember what happened when my family and I walked into the store. And my family was like, oh, we're not into this. We're going to go do something else. They were actively uncomfortable. If I would have been in my full, unfiltered, unharnessed empath era, I would have felt their discomfort so acutely in my body that I would not have been able to stay, because their discomfort would have been my discomfort. But I have harnessed my empath gifts and abilities, and I can separate out what is my feeling, what is their feeling. And I have that nervous system capacity in my own body to be present and sit with somebody else's discomfort and still be okay. That is the work I teach. I teach that inside Power, Self-Trust for Empaths. I teach that inside of the collective. And I absolutely teach this inside of my private coaching. Here's what didn't happen. I didn't convince anybody to stay in Watkins Books with me. I didn't ask them to stay. I didn't plead. And I didn't give up my experience on Watkins Books to make anyone else more comfortable. They got to have their experience. They chose to leave. I chose to stay. And then I was able to really get the lesson, because this is where it gets super interesting. Hang on, I gotta take a drink. Okay. So when we get into being able to really trust ourselves and trust our intuition, we are not looking for everyone agrees with me, this is going to be easy now. That's not probably going to be the case. Probably what's going to happen is you're going to do what I did, which is you're going to start to learn what's yours, what's not, and you're going to develop your nervous system so that you have the capacity to sit in discomfort. So my mom and my sister, brother-in-law, and nieces had gone off shopping on their own. My daughter and I finished our shopping. She got a ring. She got some cards. I got some cards. I got the Moldavite. We had this amazing conversation with the Guardian. It was really profound. We both just walked away with big grins on our face. It was such a pivotal experience. We just felt like, oh my gosh, this was just amazing. I'm so glad we got to come here. And then we decided that it would be really fun if we just opened our hearts and walked around and just found the next thing that we were supposed to do because we had set a time up with my sister, brother-in-law, and mom and nieces of when we were going to meet. And we had some time left to spend. And so we just wandered. We put our phones away and we just wandered and we went places that our hearts guided. And we didn't have to compete. It wasn't even a matter of you take a turn, I'll take a turn. We were just kind of like, ooh, I feel a pull here. You want to go? Yeah, I feel a pull there too. So we ended up with some amazing photo ops and we just had so much fun wandering around the streets of London. We didn't know where we were. We didn't really care because we knew we were within walking distance of where everyone else was because we had walked, right? And so we were just thinking maybe we'd set a timer and then at the halfway point of the time we had left, we would then maybe set a GPS to be able to meet up with my family. But we kept walking along, kept just being in our heart spaces, and we were connecting. And my daughter and I have an amazing relationship, and I so appreciate and value her. And we were just having a great time. And then as we were walking, both of us had the sensation of like, well, this is weird. I feel like we've been here. And then my daughter, she's like, do you think this was past life? And which is a fair question because that is the kind of stuff that we talk about all the time. And I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't, maybe, but, and as soon as I got ready to say the but, my eye was caught by something that was happening a little bit in front of me to the left. And what I realized was I was staring at the Guardian from Watkins Books, who was looking up at the sky, and he was standing right below the sign that said Watkins Books. By the way, you should look it up. Go look up Watkins Books London. You'll get an idea of the vibe. So the Guardian is standing outside looking up at the sky, and we walk past him, and our eyes meet. And he's like, I knew I was supposed to be out here. And I was like, well, this is interesting. And I said out loud, I don't believe in coincidence. This is an amazing synchronicity. And he said, absolutely. The universe has put us together. There is some reason that we were put together. We need to exchange contact information. And so we did, standing there outside of Watkins Books on the street. And we are still connected. And he turned me on to a completely new way of heart-centered thinking and living through our conversation and a book recommendation. I'm not ready to share that yet. That'll come. But the point is, there was this mutual recognition that, oh, this was the thing. This was the experience. It was the journey. It was the payoff for trusting the nudge. And then here's the thing. The old unharnessed empath Brenda would have been very worried by now about how much time had passed. Is the family okay? Are they upset with us? Blah, blah, blah. That was not at all the experience. The experience was completely in the moment. I knew a timer would go off and we could find our family. My daughter and I were just mesmerized by what had happened, absolutely mesmerized. I can't remember if we got a picture. I'm going to have to look through my camera roll to see if we got a picture. If I did, I'll post it on my social media. I just don't remember. But anyway, the point is, I feel like I unlocked something that day in London. And it's a visceral memory of this is how I can live. And I keep repatterning that. And if you have been following me for any length of time, you have seen really profound growth. And if you've been with me for, let's say, longer than a year, you probably saw a massive shift around August of last year. And it was this experience that did it. And here's the thing. The destination is never the destination. It's not. The destination is the journey. It's the learning to trust. I didn't know why I needed to go to Watkins Books that day. I didn't know if I needed something that I was going to buy in that store. I didn't know we were going to end up back there. I didn't know my daughter and I were going to wander London. I didn't know any of that. I just knew I wanted to go. And there's something really poignant about all of this happening on the week that my family gathered to celebrate my dad's life 1 year after he died. And I do think that's how my dad lived. My dad was very heart centered. And while he was not open about his intuitive abilities in the general public, he absolutely lived a very intuitive life. He definitely had gifts and skills. And I do think there was part of him that passed that on. And I think I've shared recently that, in fact, I'm certain I've shared recently about the last few days of my dad's life when we sat with my recording app on the phone. And one of the things he kept saying is, I've had such a good life. And the other thing that he kept saying is that he just followed his heart. He just knew. He just followed his heart. And I think that was my lesson is I can follow my heart too. And you know, you can follow your heart too. And this way of thinking and living has been around as long as we've been around. And you can go back through time and you can find musicians who had this message, and you can find playwrights that had this message, and poets and musicians. I think I said twice, but I think of my dad, his favorite poem was The Road Less Traveled by Robert Frost. And that keeps coming up for me. The Road Less Traveled. There's probably a new tattoo coming with that on it because it just, I miss my dad. And I think one of the myths, because I definitely believe that, one of the myths in being psychic and having mediumship abilities is that you don't miss them as much because you still have access. And it is true that you do have access. But there's nothing like giving a hug to my dad. But I know he's here. Like, I, I really know he's here in pretty comical ways. I know he's here. But this episode is not about grief. It's about being heart centered, heart led. That's what this means. You know, all this jargon we hear about heart led leadership, that's what they're talking about. Leading with your heart. Heart led leadership does not mean you overgive. It does not mean you become a servant. Heart led leadership means you trust the intuitive center of the heart. That's heart led leadership. And when you can learn to trust that your desires, your wants, your curiosities are part of that heart led leadership, oh my gosh, it is like a major unlock. It is the key to your next level. Now, if you have been listening to this episode and you think, wow, this sounds like I'm an empath, I'm highly intuitive. I know I receive information, but sometimes I can't tell what's mine or what's theirs. And how do I give myself permission to want what I want? And you struggle to discern between your emotions and their reactions. Then the Empowered Empath Collective membership is absolutely for you. We are spending August and September specifically exploring intuition. So this is particularly a beautiful time to come into the membership. Plus, we have some workshops around finding your next step that we've done over the past several weeks, which are really impactful. The members have loved them, especially the North and South node workshop on finding your next step. And if that sings to you, then invitation to join the Empowered Empath Collective. You can come in for $111 a month, or you can come in for the year and save 2 months. And then I'll put that link there. If you're looking for deeper support around really trusting yourself, doing the healing work around the things that might be causing you to not trust yourself, and changing the patterns that make you override what you know. Like I mentioned, that my former version of the unharnessed empath in Brenda would have been taken aback by what happened in the store when my family decided they were uncomfortable. Would have been almost impossible for me to stay there too. But I have such a regulated nervous system and such an expanded nervous system that I'm okay with their discomfort. And I trust my own guidance completely because I've changed those patterns. That's what we do inside Power. Power opens for enrollment in September, and you can join the wait list now and then be the first to know when the doors are open. And I'll put the link in the show notes too. Now, here's what I want you to do this week. These are like the hit the road action steps. I want you to notice something you're drawn to. It could be something small, or it might be something really big. You'll know. It'll be different for everybody, but that thing that you're drawn to, and before you explain it, before you try to justify why you know what you know, before you ask anyone else what they think, even if it's too late, start fresh. Don't ask right now. Before you decide if it's useful, important, practical, instead, I want you to get curious. Get curious on what happens inside your body. And if it feels a little bit scary, but you're feeling a sense of safety in your body, then invitation to experiment with what would it be like to trust that. You don't have to know exactly where you're going to know what your next step is. And sometimes the next step is just the thing you can't stop wanting. And it might be as simple and impractical as knowing you want to go to a bookstore like Watkins Books. So as we close for today, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of my journey. The podcast is growing a lot right now, and we've got some new listeners. I'm really happy to welcome you here. And my mission is to create an army of empaths who are regulated, who are confident, who are no longer taking things on. And so it matters a lot that you're here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world. It matters more than maybe ever. So I'm very grateful to have you along this journey. And if you feel called to leave the podcast a rating, review, or comment wherever you're listening, that would mean so much. Thank you again. I know I've said that, but I mean it. And stay tuned for the Judith Orloff episode, which releases on August 30th. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening so you get notified of it. We do now have Elizabeth Ralph scheduled to come on the podcast. I'm so excited. If you heard last episode, there's a whole story there. Thank you for being here. So listen, if you are an empath, if you were listening to this episode thinking, how does Brenda know that's what my experience is? Then your next step is either Power or the Empowered Empath Collective. It's one of those. And if you want to do deep one-on-one work, that is absolutely an option. I do offer private advisory coaching. That is the highest level way to work with me. And so there's a definite price differential between the Empowered Empath Collective, Power, and private coaching. But I am accepting a few new clients in September. between August and September, I have spaces for 3 new clients to begin. So I'll put the application and the coaching information in the show notes as well. Thank you for being here. Bye for now. Until next time.